Okay. Hey guys, well, this is a first video in my studio in sunny Melbourne, Australia, which is pretty funny because this morning was pouring with rain and then it's now become sunny. This is pretty typical of the region. But now what we're going to do is just do a beginner's throwing. Look, I've only been throwing for a few years, but I have taken the time to learn from some pretty nifty people, which I try my hardest to put into practice. So I've had a lot of questions and I've been looking at other people's ways of teaching and what other students are doing, and I thought, you know what, I'll just pop on a video just to show a couple of little things that I've sort of learned along the way, and see if it helps anybody. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, I think you might correct some of the stuff I'm doing and I might learn something which might be good too. So just start off with a little bit of clay here. And it's only a little bit. I'm going to just knead it. So, kneading process. This is kneading, it's not wedging. Wedging's a very different beast. So we'll just knead this. Thumb is always on the top. I'll sort of just knead it till I get to a point where I've got a nice straight sort of line. And then it doesn't have to be aggressive. Just flatten it down a little bit, get a nice, you can do these little bits on clay, otherwise I do it on my plaster back. So I usually, this is stoneware, I might do this, 2 or 3 times. Porcelain, very different beast, wedging and kneading. And maybe at some other stage we can talk about that. But for now, stoneware, just lightly kneading it, soften it up a little bit, and bang it down again. So really lightly. Okay, so bang it down, thumbs on the top and pushing with the heel part of the hand and pushing back slightly. Now I don't suggest you guys do this on your wheel like I'm doing. This is a special wheel which is not connected to the motor at any time unless you put your actual foot down, which enables me to just sit the clay and move it like this on the flywheel, so it's actually not doing any damage to the motor. But all the modern sort of wheels do not do this because it is connected to your motor system and it will ruin it by just pushing on it and wedging on it just like I'm doing, so don't do it. Okay, so that's about 3 times and it's actually softened up beautifully. So we've got a nice, not wedge, sorry. So let's just block this up. Good. And if you were to come here, that's not wet at all, but it is sticky. It's got that plasticness to it, which is really good. And that's sort of what you want to start off with. You have to spin the wheel to start off with and bang it down. Just a nice bang and maybe just get it in the sun. And then you can just slightly tap the side to make a round cone sort of pyramid. That's already starting to get centre feeling. Done. Let's turn our wheel on, and I'm sorry for the buzzing noise. This wheel you can actually use standing or sitting. I got it because it's really good for my back. So a little bit of water, not a lot of water, and I'm just gonna feel it. Just nothing more. I just want to feel it and just see how this clay feels in my hands. Maybe a little bit more water. And as I go through, I will explain everything that I'm doing. So, as I feel how this clay is reacting in my hands, I can see it's going to need a little bit more water than what I sort of throw with. And I can, as I come down the clay, I can push down, and it's sort of already coning up a little bit. So just one hand, not a lot of strength, just pushing down on the cone, and you can see it's already coning up a bit. And I can keep sort of doing that with not a lot of force and just coning it up. That simple. One-handed, not a lot of pressure, not a lot of force, coning it up. And I can push my hand a little bit in. Okay. Now, to get this down back into the ball, 2 o'clock position. So here's my 12 o'clock here. 2 o'clock's about there. So between 1 and 2 o'clock, making sure that we're nice and wet. Using this part of the hand, not this part, but using the center of the hand, and then moving it down here. So I'll wet my hand, I'll show you where I'm going. So that part of the hand. So all I'm doing is taking that part of my hand and I'm pushing towards the 1 and 2 o'clock mark. Push, 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 nice and lightly. Maybe speed up a little, just a little bit. And I'm letting the wheel movement actually push that clay down. And it's not a lot of force, and it's pushed down nicely. Okay. Now I've got a nice little mound there. Now what I want to now do is bring the bottom of that up and cone the bottom up. So in order to do that, I'm going to use this part of my hand, so the underside there, and I'm actually going to have some reasonable speed. So when you're coning up, you want some good speed, you want some decent water on it, nice and slippery, and just with those inside steps of the hand pushing down on the wheel, and then in. So you're going down on the wheel and in. Okay, so down the wheel and in, and then coning your hand around and holding that. So down on the wheel and in. And then when it gets a little bit too dry, take your hands off, wet them again, put some slip on the bottom, down on the wheel and in, and then pushing with the rest of your hand in. So compress, compress, compress. And as it starts to come up, you want to then start shifting all of the weight that you're pushing down and into the rest of your fingers. So you're moving the strength and the weight to the rest of your fingers, and that will bring the clay up. So once again, so down and in, and now as it comes up, I'm going little finger, next finger up, middle finger, pointing finger, and now all the weight and strength of my hand is evenly distributed on this clay. And voila, you now have a coned up piece of clay, relatively wet. We can just wet it a little bit. This clay can also come up a bit too, and all you need to do is 2 ways you can do this: by starting at the top and pushing down as you go down. It will then elongate it and make it longer, and or make sure it's wet. Don't strip your clay or tear it. Okay, you can do the other way with one hand, slowly bringing it up, and you've got a nice long piece. I wouldn't suggest you going that long, because sometimes it does tear and cut off, but that's okay. Alright, now once again, that part of the hand to your 1 to o'clock mark, other hand on the right hand side, just to guide it, to push it down onto the wheel and keep it centered, and now just slowly pushing to that point. Push, 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 just nice and slowly, and just letting the force of the spinning of the wheel do most of the work for you. Dip your hand into the water. Now this process will help you center, but really what it's doing, this coning, it's not so much about centering, but more about getting the clay to a point of being ready to actually throw and create your piece. Okay, the actual centering process we'll talk about after we've coned up maybe this is quite soft clay, we wedged it a little bit or kneaded it a little bit right at the beginning. We don't have to cone it as many times as you would a harder clay, like a hard earthenware clay. This clay maybe twice will cone up, so we'll do it a second time, not going to go a third time. Okay, nice and fast. Let's do what we were doing again. Hands nice and wet, full of slip. We're going down on the wheel and in, and transferring the weight to the rest of our fingers and coning up. And that's probably as high as the height that I had last time was just to show that you can go pretty high. That's about as high and as thick as you want it, and then from there onto the bottom part and center part of our hand, just here. Okay, and we're going to the top hand. Now I'm a right-hander, so my left hand is my non-dominant and my right hand is my dominant. So I'm going to start pushing between 1 and 2 o'clock, pushing towards that direction, push, 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 and letting the wheel centrifugal force and spin. Take the clay down nice and gently and just let it form underneath the hands, and we should have a relatively nicely centered ball of clay. Now what I'd normally do is keep a slip bucket, which I haven't prepared, which I might just go and grab in a moment, but what I might do is just pop the slip here. And I'll collect it later, but I usually have a second bucket and put all my slip there if I forgot to put it there. That's alright. Okay, so now let's have a look at what we've got. We've got our nice pyramid type shape here. It's been nicely kneaded at the beginning, and we've coned it twice, and now we're ready to really make sure that we're centered properly, and we're going to our next stage is centering. So, centering. This seems to create a lot of havoc for people. This is a beautiful process. I think this is part of the reason that I love building and throwing on the wheel. And it's all about being centered. Not only is the clay needing to be centered, but you yourself have to be centered. Your breathing has to be centered. And if you're not centered, this process will get you centered and will help your breathing as well. So you need to concentrate on your breathing and taking nice deep breaths and letting it out and concentrating on getting that clay centered. It's relatively centered now, but the idea is, once again, that 1 to 2 o'clock position is really important. So once again, that bottom of the hand is going to be pushing down on the wheel, and we're going to actually be pushing the clay out towards the 1, 2 o'clock position. And while we do that, we're going to keep our hands nice and centered. So this right hand will be centered on the top, and as we push to that 1, 2 o'clock position, this hand will be going down onto what I call the butterfly grip. So there's our butterfly grip, okay, but it's not fully locked into butterfly. It's just get wet that side again. It's just for push down. So we're pushing to the 1, 2 o'clock mark, back straight, slightly lean over, pushing to the 1, 2 o'clock mark, and then this right hand is going to be pushing down. So make sure the wheel's going nice and fast, and we're pushing down with our right hand, and our left hand is actually pushing down towards the 1, 2 o'clock mark. And as I push down with my right hand, you can see that the clay stands up. And every time I take my hand off the clay, it's nice and gentle. Nice and gentle. And my breathing is positioned. So Now when I do that again, so left hand on the clay, right hand in my half butterfly grip, down on the clay body, the left hand's going to be pushing out to the 1-2 o'clock position, right hand's going to be pushing straight down into the clay. I'm going to take a nice deep breath, and as I center the clay, I'm going to just slowly let it out. So nice deep breath. I'm not going to talk anymore now. Take a nice deep breath in. Again. Just take your hands off nice and slowly. And as you take your hands off, you can see and feel that this clay is nice and centered. So let's stop the wheel now and let's have a look at it. Okay. Now we do have a little line there, that's okay. We can either scrape that off or we can leave that, and I'll show you how we'll manipulate that later. So let's wet it a little bit. As you can see, we're not using a great deal of water. Okay. Now, a lot of people teach two side grips and double thumbs, other techniques for drilling. So now we're going to be drilling a hole. I personally don't. I want to maximise the life that I'm going to have on this wheel, and the less I need to use body parts and work with some smartness, the better. So what am I going to do? Instead of drilling with 2 fingers and pushing down with 2 fingers, or my 2 thumbs, which are not locked